So I have just finished a 10-day Vipassana course. The sixth time I've done a 10-day course. And I left on the 10th day, which was today, as I felt that I'd taken everything that I was going to take. And I've also got some plans moving forward for tomorrow. I have a cabin stroke pod in the wilderness out in a farm close by the Vipassana Center. And for those of you that have experience with Vipassana, this was not a productive course for me. I don't feel that I took what I hoped, and that's part of the problem. You go in with expectations, you're immediately working against the technique, because Vipassana means to see things as they are in the Pali language. So we have our perceptions and our veils and our conditions from when we were young and our environment. So you may be influenced by your religion and your friends, your social group. And what the idea of Vipassana is to decondition what you see or how you see things. So you may feel that somebody did something to you when you were young, or called you something abusive, a name, and you've associated them as a bad person just from that one incident, whereas 20 years may have passed and that person's probably changed and may not have been the person that you thought that they were. And so you get an opportunity, depending on how deep you go into the practice, you get an opportunity to clear all that stuff out. And that's a very brief description of it. It's a practice which, for the first few days, they will just have you focus on the breath to calm the thinking mind. And then after you've done that, just 3 days of literally focusing on your breath, the sensation of your breath on this area. You realize it's very difficult to do, to hold a thought, hold your attention here for even just a few seconds. And you're doing this for basically from 4:30 in the morning, which is when they wake you up until 9:30 in the evening, without speaking to anybody apart from the teacher. You get time to eat and shower and all the rest of it, but ultimately you're just sat on your own with your eyes closed, focusing on the breath that is coming out of your nostrils. And eventually you get to a place where the mind does calm, and you start to observe all these sensations in the nose that a lot of us are unaware that are there, because everything's energy and everything's constantly moving. And you progress through the 10 days, and after you move into the 4th day, you start to use that new heightened awareness that you've gained in this area, that you've just used to focus on this point here. You start feeling these sensations in the nose that a lot of the time we don't pay attention to because the mind's so busy. And then you use it to scan the body. And with that, the idea is to observe your pleasure and your pain. And you get pain. Sitting for 10 plus hours a day, you get pain. You get pain in your knees, you get pain in your back. I'm somebody who spent a lot of time in the gym, so, areas of my body are just busted. My back, lower back, knees, And if you're sat even without those issues, you will come into some form of difficulty. Everybody has some form of difficulty sitting for those many hours. And the practice is ultimately just observe what it is objectively, rather than labeling it as something that is undesirable. Can you just observe the pain in your hip as just a sensation of throbbing or pulsating, and not have a relationship of dislike to it? Could you do that? And if you can, how long can you do it for? So initially it's going to be maybe a second or 2 seconds. And then you start to bring more awareness into that feeling for longer periods of time. And you realize that all the time that you're reacting to it, you're multiplying that unpleasant experience. And you can cut into the experience objectively and just feel it for what it is, and not have a dislike to it. And so then you start to do that with other things in the body, and pleasure can be the same thing. So you get to a place where you break down the whole body into what the teacher calls banga. And banga means the dissolution, like you break down, if that's the right word, I'm not too sure. You break down the whole body into very finite sensations. And with that, you just observe. But this takes time. You may not have that happen the first time you sit the course, or you may not have it until later, to a second course, third course, or you may do. And that becomes quite pleasurable. And the idea is that this too shall change, right? And they teach you not to become attached to it, because every sitting is different. You may have a pain on one of the sittings, you come back later in the day and the pain's gone, then you have a pleasurable experience with these sensations that just completely dissolve in, the body dissolves, and to these sensations, these pleasurable sensations, this wave of really subtle sensations, and it feels, quite euphoric, and you're instructed not to become attached to these also. And if you do, unconsciously, then ultimately they're gonna leave. They're gonna leave you, and you become depressed. And so what you quite quickly realize, if you're practicing the technique correctly, is you are unconsciously creating your own suffering. And then you realize how frequently you have been doing it in everyday life. And that's the idea. So although you may not mature massively, it's an insight. You may not mature massively in the meditation, it's an insight. Some people have more profound experiences than others. Some people struggle to get the concept altogether, but a lot of people do. They take it seriously. It's 10 days of their life. And the idea is to say, okay, well, how can I use this in everyday life? And you can use it. It's fundamental. Once you sit for long enough and you realize, I don't have to be in suffering. I don't have to, it takes practice. I don't have to be suffering all the time, as much as I am. And so I've left early. I've left early because I felt that the practice just wasn't serving me in the way that I felt that I needed it to. And I was falling asleep a lot. I think the first 4 days I didn't eat anything. I just ate fruit. And the idea, part of it was because I wanted to see what my energy levels were like. Because every time you eat twice a day, once at 6:30 a.m. and once at 11, which is your lunch, and that's it. You don't eat again. If you're a new student, it's your first time, you get to eat fruit at 5 p.m. And you get tea or whatever. But with the old students, you don't. You just eat at 6:30 a.m. and you eat at 11. And you do get like about an hour to yourself after each time you eat. Each time you eat, so 6:30 to 8, you have that time to have your breakfast and then wash or whatever, and then you're back to meditation. And then for 11, you have 11. You have your lunch, and then again you get an hour. You get, I think, another hour to go and wash or whatever. And there's interviews with the teacher if you need to talk to her about your practice. So usually these are times where everyone eats and falls asleep, just goes straight to sleep because you're up at 4 a.m. For me, because I had a lot of problems over the years with my tiredness, I have ulcerative colitis, and I don't know what has been going on in my body, but it's been very difficult for me to practice Vipassana because you need to be awake and alert for long periods of time. So I was like, okay, I'm going into this as somebody who needs to approach my energy levels very differently. So I thought, let me not eat for the first few days and see if I can go deeper into my meditation without filling myself up with food. It's generally quite a healthy diet. They don't feed you anything that's, I mean, it's all organic, vegetarian diet, but still, you eat a lot of rice and other things, and you get tired. So I just ate, I think, 2 to 3 pieces of fruit a day for the first 4 days, and it seemed to be helping. My energy levels, I didn't have to sleep as much as other people, I'd noticed, and as much as I'd probably have slept in the past. And then I ate on the 4th day, and I think for breakfast, it just knocked me out. I had some bran flakes and some, I think, Ravita cakes, rice cakes or something, and it just knocked me out. I didn't do that until another 2 days later. Again, it happened. So I'd started to introduce food, it completely threw me. And my meditation wasn't, I wouldn't say it was great anyway. I had a lot of conflict, a lot of resistance, and I wasn't able to surrender to the technique. And this technique has potentially saved my life in many ways with my mental health and addiction. And I started it in my first course was in 2013. So I probably have quite high expectations, and I have done the last time I came, and that's not a good thing. You shouldn't have expectations, because the technique is dealing with things as they are, accepting the moment as it is, and the moment that you try to place an expectation on the meditation, you are working against it. So that's ultimately what it teaches you. So again, it threw me, the tiredness after my energy levels had been kind of thrown out of whack. I just wasn't the same, and I was already struggling to accept the progress that I was having. And to be honest, I was doing some other stuff in between. When I was struggling to sit, I'd take myself into the pod. They give you cells if you're an old student. And I was doing something called ETF, which is emotional freedom technique. You tap on meridian points, and it's supposed to realign your energy. And I was doing this, and I had a lot of insights from that. They would not be happy if they knew that I was doing that. But I've done the course multiple times, and that's what I did. I got a lot of insights into how I want to work and approach certain things coming back now. So now I've got another 7 days. I booked another 7 days in a pod, as I said. and I had to come back because I completely forgot one of my bags to go and stay in the pod with. So I've come back 2-3 hour drive, got the bag, I'm staying in a hotel, and I'm going to go back up to Norfolk, which is where the pod was booked, because I could go straight from the meditation center. The plan was to go from the meditation center to the pod, but obviously I forgot one of the things that I can do sometimes, is forget things. It's part of the reason why I want to use Vipassana, bring more awareness into things that I do. So anyway, I'm here now in Surrey, well, Slough actually. It's near my home, and I'll have another 3 hour drive. I wanted to stay away from the family, so I'm staying kind of with family at the moment, for a short period, and I just didn't. I wanted a continuation of my practice and my seclusion, you could say. And now what's come out of it, what seems to be coming from this, is I'm now going to take the multiple practices that I have at hand, and I am going to create my own process with these. And so for now, I'm going to leave the video there, and I'm going to make another one when I've gone through my process that I tend to engineer and pioneer, so I can come away and do